Yo, what's going on guys, Arekkz here, welcome back to another Destiny 2 video, and welcome back to Mercury. This is once again gameplay that I had a chance to record when I visited Bungie a couple of weeks back to go hands-on with some of the Curse of Osiris DLC. If you guys haven't already seen the videos that I uploaded last week, then I have some gameplay from the very first campaign mission, as well as a summary of Bungie's livestream that they did themselves. So if you guys missed any of those and you want to catch up, they are linked down below. But today we're turning our attention to Mercury, the brand new patrol zone. And in this video I want to speak specifically about some of the stuff you can do on the planet. I want to speak about the bespoke public event they created specifically for Mercury, as well as my thoughts on the heroic trigger for that. I also want to speak about the space itself just more generally and how it's slightly different to the planets we've explored to date. And while I can't show you gameplay from within the Infinite Forest, I can speak somewhat broadly about the space and my impressions, because of course I have had a chance to venture into that. So that's exactly what we're going to do in this video. So if you do enjoy this, then a like would be super appreciated. Comment down below if you have any questions. But to begin with, I want to start actually by speaking about the public event, because this is very different to any of the public events we've done to date. The ones we've done thus far, typically they are events that can occur on any of the planets, you know, whether that be the Cabal dropship or whether it be, say, the Glimmer extraction. Any of those ones, they can spawn on the different planets and you basically just do those events time and time again. Whereas this one here, the Vex Crossroads, is built not only with Mercury in mind, but it's also built in such a way that it actually utilizes a very large portion of the space. Now, bear in mind, Mercury isn't quite like other patrol zones, and we'll get onto that in just a moment. So what you see here, especially when I'm kind of flying around, isn't the entirety of the space. But for the initial area, the very first part of Mercury that you explore, the first part that you get to roam around yourself once you complete the first campaign mission, this is where we'll be exploring today. Now, the Vex Crossroads is a multi-stage public event. It's actually got 6 different steps to it. It's basically split across 2 halves of the map. You effectively do the same thing on both sides, so it's a mirrored multi-step thing. And then once you finish all those steps, you work towards the center to fight a big boss, and that's when you get your loot. So essentially the way it works is as follows. When it begins, there are these big pylons, or these warp gates, let's say, over on the far east and the far west of the map. You walk over there and there'll be loads of enemies that spawn, and there'll be a gatekeeper that comes out. The very first phase is to seize keys from the gatekeepers to shut down the warp gates. There are 4 gates, 2 on the west, 2 on the east. So you kill the enemies until the gatekeeper comes out, which is typically a big Minotaur. You kill him and he then drops some orbs. You pick them up and you jump over onto the pedestals, the pillars, and you will then automatically perform the dunk animation, and that shuts down one of the warp gates. You do 2 on both sides, and once you've done that, you then activate the next phase of the event. This will then send you out further off the playable space into these side sort of satellite islands, and when you go over there, you will then need to effectively repeat the process. You jump on these little jump pads, they fly you all the way over. You go to these mini islands, and again, once you're there, there'll be another gatekeeper. You kill him, he drops the orbs, you slam him in the middle, and you then fly back to the center, fly over to the other side, and you then visit the other island, repeat the process, and you then meet back up in the middle for the boss fight. That is the general flow for the actual public event. It's actually pretty cool. It's definitely lengthier than pretty much any public event we've done to date, but it is quite nice that it's built with the space in mind, because I'm sure you guys are all in that same position now that you've done public events so many times. Like, I actually quite enjoyed doing them for a while. It used to be my relaxing activity. I would just sit down in Destiny, throw on a fireteam medallion, go and do public events for a couple of hours, just farm things, hopefully get an exotic engram. And that was kind of a thing that I used to do for quite a while, but obviously once you've done that many times, and you've done the same event many times, it does get a little bit samey. And while there's nothing to say that wouldn't happen with this event, it is at least nice to see it's built with the actual space in mind. It's not just an event that will drop in, it is, you know, part of the map. So that in itself is pretty cool. With regards to the heroic trigger, a lot of us that were at the event, we were trying to work it out. Nobody seemed to actually unlock it or trigger it, and the developers weren't going to tell us how to do it. So this is still a bit of a mystery. However, there is one important thing to note. During the phase where you have shut down the initial 4 warp gates and you fly over to one of these satellite islands, once you've killed the gatekeeper and you slam the orb in the middle, there's this little diamond Vex looking anomaly that spawns floating out into the background, and you can shoot it, you can destroy it, and it's only there following the warp gate shutting down. So I destroyed the first one in my kind of first run through. I then flew over to the other side expecting there to be one on the other island, and it wasn't there. Now I don't know whether this is a timer thing, because the first time I did the event we did it quite slowly, so fair enough. The second time I was trying to rush through it, so we destroyed the warp gates pretty quickly, we flew over to the islands pretty quickly, but I was only able to find one of those diamond anomalies. So as it currently stands, this is still a speculation, but I think it could well be one of those things where that item or that object spawns in a number of different locations. You have to look out for it, you shoot them, and then once you do that, it probably triggers the heroic version. So that is at least something to kind of keep in mind when you guys start playing the DLC on 5th of December, if you want to try and sort of work out what to do, because obviously heroic events, if you can trigger them, then more loot, and it's just generally speaking better to do. So that is some food for thought. For the time being, that was the public event, so plays out, pretty good fun, definitely, you know, different compared to everything we've done to date. But if we then speak slightly more broadly about Mercury in itself. So the first time you encounter Mercury Patrol Zone will be essentially after the first story mission. From that point onwards, you can then roam around, you can do some basic stuff. It's worth calling out that before you complete the campaign, the typical stuff you expect to be marked on the map will not be there, so you won't see adventures or lost sectors or basically anything marked on the map until you complete the campaign. So initially, you can still discover that stuff, you can go and find your regional chests, you can go to the lost sectors, but you're going to have to go looking yourself, which could actually be quite appealing because it's nice not to always be told where to go all the time. You know, you can actually kind of roam around the map and genuinely feel like you're discovering it, but once you complete the campaign, then Mercury will receive all the usual markings that you would expect from a typical destination in Destiny 2 right now. That is something I didn't get to see myself because we were specifically told to explore Mercury after the first mission when it was sort of in its infancy, so to speak, and not post-campaign. So what you're seeing here, and what I've personally seen, experienced and played, isn't the whole social space. And that leads me nicely on to speaking about the Infinite Forest. Now the Infinite Forest is an interesting place. You guys saw a very quick glimpse of it earlier last week, and obviously at the time of making this video, you guys haven't seen the second stream, but by the time you're watching this video, the stream would have finished. So I imagine during that stream they're going to be going into the Infinite Forest, but essentially when you load in, it is a series of pathways that generate. It's populated with enemies, there are doorways you go through, and they then lead you to these different time zones. There's basically Mercury in the past, Mercury in the future, and Mercury in the present. Now I can't speak much about those, specifically Mercury in the past, but the thing that I do want to call out, and this is an important thing that I was trying to understand when speaking to some of the developers at Bungie, because when you experience the base part of Mercury, it felt a little bit small to begin with because you're exploring this sort of little circular area, and if you haven't completed the campaign, you can't just walk into the forest when you please. However, once you do complete the campaign, and this is what the developer said, that is when the social space truly opens up, because once you've completed it, you then have access to the Infinite Forest whenever you please. You can walk in there, and that's when you can access the different timelines for Mercury. So instead of thinking of this planet as one, say, like Titan, or Io, or Nessus, or even Earth, think of it more like a lot of different hubs or nodes, because you basically spawn into this central area, and then once you go through the forest, you can go off to these other, basically satellite versions of Mercury, and that gives you more space to explore. So from my understanding, it is still a pretty big patrol area, it's just not connected in the same way that everything else is, if that makes sense. It's a crazy thing, whenever you start talking about time travel and going back and going forward, it makes things more confusing, but that's essentially what they explain. So the Mercury you're seeing here is not the whole space, but it is where I got to explore. Now, of course, on top of that, I also had a chance to venture into the Lost Sector. Lost Sectors, of course, you know, function largely the same. There didn't seem to be any drastic changes there. You know, you roam in, there's some Osiris-themed decorations there. I think some of his followers or worshippers were rooted out by the Vex, because this was a Vex-focused Lost Sector, but the principle is still the same. You get to the end, you fight a boss, and you then open your chest. I also found a regional chest up near the back of the lighthouse. It obviously pays to venture off the beaten track. It's also worth calling out, I mentioned this last time, but just to kind of give you guys a visual indication of this, you can literally just walk from the social space into the patrol zone, and from the patrol zone into the social space. So there are two different portals depending on whether you are higher up or on ground level. You literally just walk straight into it and you get into the lighthouse. So of course, the broader lighthouse that we saw in Destiny 1, that isn't necessarily the space that you're going to be exploring for this social space. Once you're actually inside, that is literally what you see and what you get. That's, you know, where you have the Forge over on the left, you have Brother Vance in the middle, who is a vendor. I can't show you guys his gear or the stuff that he has for sale for the time being, but he's a vendor. And of course you also have that circle on the wall to track your progress for the Osiris-themed weapons. But that is pretty much it for the time being. That was at least kind of a chance to look at some gameplay from Mercury. I will say that the space itself looks incredible. I really like the aesthetic for this. The mixture of just, you know, the sandy plains of Mercury, plus when you go into the Infinite Forest and you see all the Vex architecture, definitely a really cool contrast, and just in general the skyboxes and just looking at the scenery in this map is really nice. It's definitely one of those things where you turn your HUD off, you take some nice screenshots, that much is for sure. I will say that I do really wish I had the chance to explore the full extent of Mercury so I could properly convey to you guys how exactly it works, because I was still left a little bit confused with regards to the whole timeline thing and the way that it all connects. and the fact that, you know, the Mercury that I was exploring was not the entirety of it, but that much I will just have to wait and see on December 5th. I will say that if there was anything in here that was explained in the stream and I'm kind of talking about it as if I didn't know it, then that's probably because I recorded this beforehand, so I will update that in my stream recap video. But the main focus for this, of course, was to just give you guys some gameplay. So, hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, then a like would be super appreciated. Comment down below if you have any questions, let me know what you think, anything like that. And of course, keep it locked as well, because I'll have more videos coming your way, and next week is when we get a chance to talk about the Crucible maps. I'm not typically one for PvP, I'm more a PvE guy myself, but it will at least give you guys a chance to see some new stuff. So, thank you very much for watching, take it easy, catch you next time, peace out.